Pokemon to be rebooted? It's a theory, my theory, and I explained it in that video, so why not go check that out now, or after this video. There will be links at the end and in the description. So what if Pokemon were rebooted? What would I want out of it? How would I like it to change? And also, how would you like it to change? While I explain my thoughts, why don't you think about yours? What do you want to see in a rebooted Pokemon game? Let me know in a comment below, and now, let's get started. We all have to admit it, the basic gameplay of Pokemon hasn't changed much in 20 years. Sure, now there's breeding, new types of battles, EV training, and Pokemon shows, but at its core, it's still a kid walking around the world catching Pokemon, battling 8 gym leaders to take on the Elite Four, and becoming the champion. And somewhere along the way, you uncover the secrets of the region's legendaries and single-handedly defeat a crime organization, generation after generation. Really, they are only adding stuff, which is better than no originality at all, but still. Also consider that now the average Pokemon player is a college student, and they're a lot more capable than young children. And do you really think Game Freak wants to keep remaking better and better Pokemon models for thousands of Pokemon if they just kept going without rebooting? So perhaps it really is time to reboot the Pokemon game, but nothing I said in that video is absolutely concrete, so it still might not reboot. So if Pokemon were to be rebooted, I'd want it to start fresh from the ground up, completely ignoring every previous game's established world and canon. They could even start with a whole new Pokedex of Pokemon, classifying the first 7 generations as the first era of Pokemon, and the reboot is the beginning of a second era with entirely new Pokemon. None of the old ones return, or only the favorites return. So they would leave out like Finian and Trubbish. But maybe not. That's something I'd have to think a lot longer about, and that's also something that I'd really be interested in you talking about in the comments. Still giving you like a whole new 400 or so at the get-go, but still, all of them completely new, none of the originals coming back. Just let me know your thoughts. So what would I want to change? Well, let's just continue as if I were summarizing the game for you. So first off, your character. I'd want full character customization, lots of options for eyes and nose and mouth shapes, even the shape of the head and body proportions. Rather than being a character, if you wanted, you could fully be you. Also, I'd want to be able to pick my starting city from a few options, and even pick an origin story. I want more roleplay. The new Pokemon should be a full-on RPG. In fact, I'd even say get rid of the whole pick one of the 3 starters trope. I'd say depending on which city you pick and what actions you take during the first part of the game, that will determine which Pokemon you have the options to choose from. They would be ones native to the area that you are in, and speaking of areas, of course I'd want this to be the biggest Pokemon region ever. I'm talking Skyrim and Oblivion scale, maybe even Just Cause scale. But in a fully populated Pokemon world that is also fully traversable. Bike riding would improve tremendously from this. It could even be somewhat realistic mountain biking. The main city in the middle would be huge and very well lived in, and there are tons of visible Pokemon everywhere. No more of this Pokemon are invisible in the grass thing. All of them are visible at all times. Birds flying all over the place, rats scurrying and crawling about, and bugs everywhere. I'd want the rare Pokemon to be even rarer, and the common Pokemon even more common. And speaking of Pokemon, if they do keep all the old ones, how about no more limiting the number of Pokemon in the wild? Every Pokemon should be available somewhere in the game, just various levels of rarity. And speaking of which, now would be a perfect time to change up how Pokemon breed and evolve and such. I always thought it was strange that phantoms, which are tree stumps possessed by a child's soul that got lost in the woods, can breed. Doesn't make sense. Same for most of the ghost Pokemon. I understand that for the purpose of gameplay, it makes sense that every non-legendary Pokemon is able to breed, but I wish that this wasn't the case. It would add so much more meaning to the rarer Pokemon, making catching them all the more epic. You'd have to hunt down the rarer ones. And the same goes for the way Pokemon evolve. No more of the silly needing to trade to evolve them, and you should actually need a Shelder to bite Slowpoke's tail in order for it to evolve, and it should not be the simplest of tasks. It should be a side quest. Oh yeah, I did say full-on RPG, so side quests galore. I'm talking full open-world RPG. Maybe leave some higher-leveled boss areas blocked off, and you need to use a certain HM to get there. But for the most part, the world is completely open. Also, I never liked how a 12-year-old kid can capture God in a Pokeball. Legendaries in this game should not be catchable. Mythical Pokemon can be though, but legendaries are too important. You should be able to fight them though, but they should be the greatest challenges imaginable. All max level, because that just makes sense, and in the case of Arceus, fight Arceus along with a horde of unknown. Each legendary would have some sort of gimmick that makes them even more challenging, not for the faint of heart, however, mostly optional. And also, however, since the Pokemon is still a kid's game, definitely add in difficulty options. Call them Trainer, Leader, and Master or something. Master, of course, being the true, most realistic difficulty, though it's pretty challenging. But how would I want the gameplay to change? Well, personally, very few turn-based games interest me. Pokemon is one of those exceptions, but even it has been getting a little on the boring side for me. Maybe I'm just getting old. I just feel like the world of Pokemon is so deep and vast and beautiful and awesome! But then the battles are kinda... especially in the Way Too Easy campaign. I get the strategic value of competitive battles, but for me personally, I could do without the turn-basedness. Replacing the battles with more action. Maybe not fully removing turn-basedness though, like not making every battle like Pokken Tournament. No. Perhaps gameplay like Final Fantasy VII and other Final Fantasies and other games that have copied its system, where a Pokemon's speed will determine how fast this bar above their head fills, and when that bar is full, the Pokemon will do an attack. This would also make multiple Pokemon battles all the more exciting as the trainer yells commands at the Pokemon that will do the attack once the bar is full. Then they await their next command. You could even stack commands so that after your Pokemon does the move, it will automatically set the next one to be done. And of course, you can cancel it out. To add more action as well as more strategy, there could even be defensive options, like while waiting for the bar to fill, you can have the Pokemon in speed, defense, or normal stances. As in, when in speed form, the bar fills faster, but the Pokemon's defense is lower. In defense form, it's the opposite, and in normal, it's the middle. Also, if both Pokemon attack at around the same time, priority moves and the range of moves can be taken into account, and flying Pokemon can have an extra advantage of having a flying stance that makes physical moves from Pokemon that can't also fly, or can't jump very high, almost always miss, but special ranged moves do a ton of more damage. I don't know exacts, but some sort of balancing mechanism in there. Basically, I just want the Pokemon battles in the game to be more like the battles in the anime, but still with a dependence on stats and strategy. Of course, this battle system would favor multi-Pokemon battles, so the game would focus heavily on those, even to the point where you have 3 Pokemon out at once as you fight a legendary or a boss, and it's still very challenging. Speaking of bosses, the crime leaders won't follow the rules. They'll just throw out extra Pokemon from time to time, making it all the more challenging to you, but you also have the option to throw out more also. But then the EXP gets split. I want to explore the world more, a more detailed world. Finding and catching rare Pokemon will be even more rewarding if you have to work to find them, such as traversing a ruin filled with puzzles just to find some Cofagrigises. The game could even explore the lore even deeper through Pokemon-specific side quests and such, and that's what I want. That's what I personally would love to see in a full Pokemon reboot, or I guess a spin-off. But what are your thoughts? Leave them in the comment section below. I love thinking about fun stuff like this. And also, I'm going to go ahead and make this a tag video, so fellow PokeTubers, as a response to this video and to that video, in a video of your own, why not share your thoughts on all of this evidence and tell us your ideas in a video yourself? What minor changes or complete overhauls would you want to see if Pokemon were fully rebooted? And at the end of your video, tag a few other PokeTubers. Since I'm starting though, I'll go ahead and add a few as in a lot of them. Of course, Keeper Toby, obviously, TrueGreen7, Eryizo, Axellion, and Speqtor. And aiming high, JWittz? Can you notice me, please? Please? I'd love to hear your thoughts too. And really, this goes out to everyone. What would you like to see in the Pokemon world if, and that's a very big if Pokemon were to be completely rebooted, ignoring absolutely everything that has already happened, and overhauled? What would you want to see? It's so fun discussing things like this. So until next time, you stay awesome. I bumped my light just a little bit ago. Are you okay, light? That's good. And hey, while I have you here, yesterday I posted a trailer to that huge video I mentioned earlier. Just because a lot of people were saying, oh, this video's 45 minutes long, oh man, I'm not gonna watch that. So if any of your friends are like that, maybe show them the trailer instead, and that'll get them interested. Also, said trailer at the very, very end announces that I am indeed making a part 2 to that video. Because that video, 45 minutes long, that was about a third of my notes. However, and I don't mean to sound like a beggar, but making crazy huge videos like that is always a huge risk. That video took me about 80 hours to make, which I know isn't going to be worth it in the end. It was significantly more of a passion project than me doing this because it's my job. It's like me working for $2 to $3 an hour, which is significantly less than what it needs to be made for people to live where I live in California. I'm moving out of California as soon as I can. So if you can and you're able to and you actually want to, because I am not going to make this a requirement in any way, I do have a Patreon page, and that video would not have been made if not for my Patreon supporters, and the same can be said of future super huge videos like that. I could just break those videos into parts, but then the impact would be significantly less. That video had to be 45 minutes long, otherwise the point wouldn't all get across. I mean, I could probably have gotten it down to half an hour, but even then. And if you haven't already, you should follow me on Twitter. I usually don't end my videos on, hey, check out my Patreon and check out my Twitter stuff, but I figured I should probably start. That would probably help me out. I've been in a really rough spot as of late. I mean, just a few seconds ago, I was talking to my light. So I've been talking here on this end card for significantly longer than I should have, and I'm sorry. But hey, everyone I tagged, I super would like to hear your thoughts on this. What would you like to see if Pokemon were to be fully rebooted?